Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you're a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you. What separates world-class customer service companies from everyone else? One significant factor is having someone dedicated to designing and managing the customer's experience. The Customer Experience Executive Academy trains leaders to excel at this. Find out how to enroll now. Contact Claudia at DiJuliusGroup.com for details.
Welcome back, Revolutionaries. And today my guest is Leslie Shreve, founder and CEO of Productive Day. Leslie is an expert, creator of a unique proprietary system called Taskology, the science of getting things done. As I like to say, getting shit done. Encompassing system for workload management and productivity. It includes the management of tasks, times, email information, and more. Leslie shows executives how to increase efficiency and productivity by up to 300%, gain 1 to 2 hours back in their workday every day, and spend up to less than 50%, spend up to 50% less time in their inbox and make more powerful progress without, this is what got me, working nights and weekends. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you, John. It's great to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited. They say you can't buy time, but it sounds like you are talking that, maybe we can find more time in a day. I will tell you one thing that I thought when we were, the pandemic and forced everyone to work from home is that kind of gave everyone an extra hour in the day, at least, depending on your commute time, right? I don't know if that's part of it, but let's get into it. Tell me about Taskology.
Taskology. Okay, so this is a way to make your workday easier and more efficient. I think what's happening out there in the workdays today is that folks are really struggling and overwhelmed with so much on their plates, too many responsibilities. They're having trouble finding the time to move their projects forward because they feel so reactive in their workday, sort of putting out fires, jumping at things, notifications, interruptions, distractions. And what's interesting is that they're now on a hunt for trying to find a solution because no one has ever handed them the solution or a system to handle it. So they're on the hunt and they're constantly looking for tips, tools, tactics, shortcuts, apps, and hacks. And unfortunately, that's not where success will be found. It's certainly not where productivity will be found. Because when you put together and kind of cobble together a bit of random disconnected tips and tools and methods, you're going to end up with like staples and paper clips and binder clips, bringing in this app for tasks and my planner for this and my whiteboard for that and my email app over here, and you try to put all that together, but none of them are talking to each other. They're not connected. They're not streamlined. And so what happens is they still struggle, even if they have a great email app. Well, they're still struggling with getting things done. And that's task management. Or maybe they're losing time and they don't know how to take control of either one of those, email or tasks, or even information, because that's another process in the day. So when people are this overwhelmed and they stop and think, well, how can I stop and figure this out? How can I find the time to get a solution for this? Because they're running at such high speeds. And so Taskology is the system that brings it all together, all four of the processes in your workday: task management, time management, email management, and information management. And it makes it all seamless because you don't have to put together, disparate systems or methods or tips or tools. And if you have something like Microsoft Outlook, it's easy peasy because it was built with that in mind. But I also teach it in other systems, whether you have Google or Apple or Asana, Trello, Todoist, whatever it is out there, this methodology for your technology can be applied so that you have a new way of thinking, decision making, and execution.
I love it. 10, 15, 20 years ago, it was a DIY, a do it yourself. And then, I believe the last 5 years has been do it for me. And, being and that could be as easy as hiring a landscaper, right? But finding things, Amazon says they sell, and I think they do, time, right? And they say the average Amazon customer saves 75 hours a year, right? And that's 3 days. When you think of, after this podcast, I got to run to, Target or Walmart or and it's like, no, I don't. I don't have to drive there. I don't have to battle the long lines. I don't have to try to find the, you know, kid in the aisle and then him tell me, and all that versus I'll just go online, order it, and it'll be here, maybe today, definitely by tomorrow.
Right.
So, I like that. Some that I found, and maybe this is part of, your tips and tricks is when we, as a company, my company went to Slack, and I'm not endorsing any, there's a lot of them out there. But that really helped, because, for internal.
Mm-hmm.
So what that meant was now all my emails, no one was allowed to email each other in the company unless it was a forward from a customer. But
Right.
now I know my email is one of two things, right? Spam solicitation, or it's a customer, but I don't have to sort through all the other chains of back and forth. And then Slack is all internal. So that simplified my life a lot. So I was able to clean up my inbox. And if it wasn't, it was either, like I said, a junk, or it was someone I needed to get back to because it was a high priority.
Mm-hmm.
Is that part of it?
It actually isn't.
Oh,
Isn't? Yeah, it isn't because so many of the folks in corporate, they may have instant messaging as a part of their company culture, or they might be using something like Slack or
yeah.
other IMs.
Teams.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, they're still buried in email internally. So the culture hasn't changed because of the Slack or the IMing. They're still getting buried in email. So they have to have a way of thinking and a process to follow to take control of it. So I'm finding that that's not really part
Okay.
of it
All right.
because they are still getting and receiving, and they also have the whole CYA going on, because if you're IMing, it kind of disappears off the screen and you don't really have a record of things. And so the corporate people I work with definitely can't get away from email. And so they need a way to get through it and get it out of their hair. So we help people, as you said in the intro, spend up to 50% less time in their email inbox, and we help them get to zero, and they know how to do that now every single day. So
Well, I
they're
love it because I
it's
mean,
much
that's
faster.
that
Mhm.
as a leader, that's really not where you bring in the most money is managing emails, right? You got to be touching your
Right.
customers, you got to be touching your employees, leading, working on the vision, working on the strategy, and that
Right.
those are the minutia that slow us down in the quicksand. So, can you give us some strategies here of what leaders
Yeah.
can do?
Sure. Yeah, because you're right. They can't spend too much time here. And they actually are when they come to me because everyone is flagging or marking things as unread so they stay bold in the inbox and all of that. So what ends up happening is that they're rereading emails they've already seen but couldn't do anything with. So I
Yeah.
give them a way to get through that much faster so they can move on and make progress outside the inbox. So the first thing that I tell people to do, and I actually walk them through this in the private consulting, so we're doing it together and they're learning by doing. But I'll tell you the very first thing is that if you've got hundreds or thousands of emails in the inbox and you're not using folders on the left side of the screen for any kind of reference storage, that's one of the first places we want to maximize. Although you have to be careful because there is such a thing as over organizing. So you can't have hundreds and dozens of, email folders over there. They really have to have a purpose. So we have a specific number in mind where it's ideal for our clients to have certain email folders going on for hot stuff like the projects you're working on, the initiatives in the company. Maybe it's part of your team, or it's going to be different for everybody, but basically you're going to have these big buckets on the left and they should only be reference, never action. Action we put somewhere else. So this
Right.
is all for looking up later. But what we do is if you've got things going back to like 2018 or even farther back, you want to just get that big chunk of email out of the inbox that goes back that far, all the way up until about, I'd say, 3 months from where we are today, and get those in a folder on the left. Now, a lot of people will use their deleted items folder as a file cabinet. I do not recommend that. Please turn that back into a trash can and either archive or get all that out of there, because what you're doing is anytime you search in a folder like that, that's mixed with all the junk and the trash and the things you didn't want, now you've got to sift through all these
Right.
things just to get to the gold, right?
Right.
So get a folder going that says 2018 to 2024 emails, whatever, but leave the most recent 3 months in your inbox. Those are the ones that are going to have the most action items and important information for events and opportunities. So just get the big bulk of it out first. That's always number one. Number two is you take those last 3 months and now you need to make decisions. And this is where people get really fatigued is decision making. You know, what is this? Why did I get it? What do I need to do with it? And there's going to be so many different things that you can do with these emails. It could be an opportunity. It could be an event to go to. It could be a conversation you need to weigh in on. It could be giving a team some support, you know, or it could be a task or a follow-up. And that's one of the most important things I teach my clients to do is get those tasks and follow-ups out of email and onto the Taskology task list, but without using the flag. And it's only over there on the task list that we build in our system where you've got everything that you need to do, have to do, want to do, even dream of doing. Doesn't matter where it came from. Does not matter the source, because you have more than 10 different sources of tasks in the workday. Email is just the most annoying. So we pull them away from their sources. And once you can get your tasks and follow-ups out of email, then you've got it in a place on the task list where you can plan, where you can prioritize, where you can effectively compare everything and make smart decisions about how to spend your time. So those are some of the things we do. Now, getting tasks out, everything else is referenced or it's archived, tossed, deleted, whatever. So I do turn my clients into decision-making ninjas because they really have to start being really quick. Like, I know what this is, and now I have a place to put it. So if they didn't have a place to put it, we create that for them. And we do it together so that they know how to maximize their hard drive or, you know, a place in the cloud for their e-documents. They know what to do with contacts. They know what to do with papers and files. So you've got to have all those reliable and trusted systems around you, or else they will stay stuck in the inbox. We have to get them out because nothing is best managed while it's still sitting in the inbox.
Well, I love it. Decision making ninjas. That's awesome. And you know, I'll bring everything back to me because, you know, I'm my favorite subject, right?
Yep.
So I think I'm doing, you know, a little bit of what you're saying, right? And this is what I tell my leaders is your inbox is not your to-do list. It
Correct.
absolutely cannot be. So here's how I do it, and I think it might tell me if I have it right, is you know, unless I'm traveling and speaking, you know, I will empty my inbox every night and or every day, but sometimes it's night or on the plane ride home. And it gets you know, I'll do what you say. I'll throw it in the, you know, the proper thing. So you know, if you email me your bio and what we're going to talk about and all that, um I will throw that in the podcast folder, and then on my to-do list I will put, and I don't know if this is right, I'll have mine urgent, needed to, want to do, and then waiting for, and you could tell us about what the Taskology thing looks like. And urgent means I can't, it has to be done today. So I'll only put three things on my urgent because as you know, 60 to 80% of our day comes up as a crisis, right? That we have to put out. So, you know, perfect world. Yeah, I'm going to do these 10 things today, but that's not going to happen because, you know, things will come up. So that's why three things, you know, and so, you know, and so then I'll put, all right, create the podcast interview, you know, with Leslie, and then I know where to find the information and create it for it. But yeah, I think I'm pretty good with you know, cleaning it up, and it's either a to do, depending on an urgent need to do. Need to do to me is this week, and then want to do. And I always had in my past, you know, I would just have one master list and there'd be 30 things on it and it'd be overwhelming. And what I'd naturally do is I gravitate to something I enjoy doing, but I didn't necessarily need to do, right? But I
Right.
enjoy it. It's kind of fun. It's whatever, but I'm not knocking out the things that I have to do. So that's why I support it. If I ever have time or, weekend, I'll go to the want to do, which is a
Mhm.
little bit more enjoyable. But am I on the right path with it?
You're on the right path. What I'm hearing from you is that the system that you've created for yourself is
Yeah.
working. And that is the most important thing, because if what you're doing today wasn't working and things were getting missed or lost or forgotten, then we would have a different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I
Yeah.
would recommend for the folks who are listening is that you not categorize necessarily your tasks.
No.
That would be the one thing I would point out
Okay, well,
to
how
you and
does
everyone else.
Taskology and this is a format that people can get or whatever at productiveday.com,
Mhm.
productiveday.com,
Mhm.
and they'll be in the show notes. But tell us what your Taskology
Sure.
methodology looks like.
Sure, sure. So the most important thing to understand about your tasks is you were correct in saying you can't have just one long list.
Yeah.
That is not a plan. That is just a
And plus, I
long,
think you said your inbox should not be your to-do list.
that's true
Because
too.
that's
So
where I will find something from 2018. Oh, I wonder if it's too
right,
late to respond to that.
exactly. A little
Yeah.
late, yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but when we build the task list, it needs to be central, meaning it's the only one you've got, and digital. So let's get away from paper.
Get it,
And
so I can access it whatever device I'm on, right? That's shared.
correct,
I'm on my phone right now, my computer, my iPad, and they all
correct.
sync.
That's right.
So
That's
just
right. That's right.
is Taskology an app?
No, it is not. It is
Okay.
simply a methodology for your technology.
Okay.
And again, if things are syncing and you have access to a task list on your computer, that's the ideal place to set it up and work it most of the time. Now, if you access it on your iPad and your iPhone, that's great, especially when you're traveling.
Yeah.
But you need one place. So that's why central and complete are essential, because what's happening today is that these tasks, not only are they coming from all these different sources like email, phone calls, we have texting now, social media,
Voicemails. Yeah.
meetings, hallway conversations,
Yeah.
papers and files on the desk as reminders of things to do, so you're kind of looking everywhere. So professionals right now are trying to actually plan and prioritize basically in their head a lot of times, because they're looking at maybe a legal pad that they started, but then they're trying to remember the flagged emails and what's the most important thing sitting on my desk and what's the most important thing in my head and over here on these meeting notes. And now they're trying to prioritize in their head, but that's a problem, because it's actually impossible to do that efficiently and effectively without missing, losing, or forgetting something.
Yeah.
So we bring it all together in Taskology. Like I said earlier, we pull it away from the source. So when my clients come to me, they have all kinds of different ways to keep track of things to do. They've got big pads, little pads, spiral pads, notepads, post-it notes, planners, whiteboards, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, apps on their
Napkins from
phone,
the restaurant or
everything.
bar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the napkins, the paper towels, I've seen it all, John.
Yeah.
And so we all that disappears on the very first day,
Okay.
because we want to build that Taskology task list super fast, because you don't want one foot in your old system and one foot in the new system
Right.
for very long, or it hurts your momentum. So all that disappears. Now I do all of this virtually, and certainly maybe 10 years before the pandemic. So it's a virtual process where I'm talking everyone through how to make decisions about each thing and then what to do with it. So when we're building the task list, when we find a task or a follow-up or something you're waiting for, because you said the magic words there, that's a pending task. And actually all of those turn back into action for you. So
Right.
if you're waiting for something, and this is for everybody listening, that actually is something that is really a task. That is not something you want to let sit
Forget.
somewhere,
Right. Yeah.
because you don't, and you also don't want to do that continuous review. Now, I remember my days back in corporate, because I had 13 years in corporate before I started Productive Day in 2003. And I remember my pending pile. It was bad because it was a little stack on the right side of my desk. And every day I would waste time basically flipping through that stack to see, oh, what did I reach out for? Who did I call? Who did I email? What am I waiting for? When should I take action again?
Right.
When should I, right? None of that can be, you never want to waste time on that. None of that needs to happen.
So
So
do you recommend putting it on your calendar as
no,
a thing? No?
we
Okay.
don't use, no, in Taskology, we don't use the calendar for anything except actual time commitments,
Okay.
meetings, calls, events, speaking engagements, podcasts, time with kids, vacation, literal time commitments go on the calendar. Tasks all go on a task
Not
list.
follow up with Leslie if I don't hear from her.
It does turn into that kind of task. So there's
Okay.
no more waiting for category and no more urgent or like no categories at all in
Okay.
Taskology. Because the truth is, you don't want to look at 4 or 5 or 6 different lists to determine what to do today, because today's action is about time, not about what it is. It's about, are my tasks aligning with the time that I have? So instead of 3 in the urgent and 2 in the important and I'm waiting for, don't look at all of that. Just look in one place for all the things that you've deemed necessary for today. Maybe a waiting for is really urgent. That's why categories
Absolutely. It
get
could be a
all,
check
yeah,
or I can't produce this podcast without your headshot,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I
That's
need,
where categories start to trip people up, John, because they're like, well, it's urgent, but I'm also waiting for it. So what do I do? So we strip all that away and we make it a simple task. So it's easy and achievable. We define what a task is in the system, and we make it so that everything is an action step that actually starts with a verb. So if you had something you were waiting for, the question is, so here we'll go into the strategy here. You ready?
yeah,
So if you have something you're waiting for, the question is, how long are you going to wait before you take action again if you don't get what you're waiting for?
yeah,
That's the real question. So if you say, well, I'm waiting for Bob to get back to me about ABC. Okay, well, are you going to wait until next Monday or next Wednesday? Like, how long are you going to give him? Okay,
right.
well, you might say, well, Leslie, I'll give him till next Wednesday. Great. That goes on our task list because everything on our task list has an action date. Everything has a target date of action and they're grouped by action day. So you're not trying to do a gazillion things in one day. You are only have a small selection, like you said before, which is right. So it lands on next Wednesday, again, in the list, not on a calendar. And we're going to say, okay, well, how are you going to follow up with Bob? Are you going to email him? Are you going to call him? Are you going to text him? Send a carrier pigeon? What you going to do?
Right.
So then you get that verb in there and you say, well, I'm going to call him this time because last time I emailed him. So I'm just going to pick up the phone and call him and I'm going to ask for ABC. And that is the task. So it's not about waiting for anymore. It doesn't matter whether you're waiting or it's pending or what category, or that's where it gets murky.
Want to improve your company culture and become the brand your employees and customers can't live without? Email Claudia at thedijuliusgroup.com to find out about consulting, executive and online training, and other resources we can offer you. You can also schedule a call with Claudia by going to tdg.click/Claudia.
Yeah,
Right.
too many people have the bells and the whistles and the colors and the categories, and it's too much. We just strip it down in Taskology. It's simple and effective. It's what are you going to do and when are you going to do it? So that's partly what it looks like.
And how do we help our team do similar ways? And
Everybody
all
can do it
this
the same
is
way.
stressful, right?
Mhm.
If I have things on my to-do list, it's hard to go out to dinner tonight, right, and enjoy it. It reminds me back in college, on the weekend, if I had, if I knew I didn't study or I have a big project due, you really couldn't, that anxiety wears on you.
It sure does. It wears you down to a nub because the stress of what did I forget? What didn't I get to? Am I working on the right thing? Because now I'm too worried about what I'm not working on. And
Yeah.
that kind of lack of clarity can really eat away at you. So we give everyone 100% clarity because we pull everything away from the source, get the inbox to zero, the desk is clear, no more legal pads or whiteboards or Excel spreadsheets or what have you. It's all centralized in one place, which gives you an incredible sense of control of how you spend your time, because now you can see everything. Otherwise, you're flying blind. But when you can see everything and you have 100% awareness, well, now it's crystal clear. oh, I have to do this today, but that's going to have to wait until Monday or Tuesday or whatever, next week, next month. So my clients have anywhere from 30 to 150 tasks on their task list, but they're not all for today or even this week or this month. And so because everything is grouped by action day and you have a certain select number of what you're going to go after, you're not trying to overwhelm yourself. And because of the limitations of time, it's pretty easy to go, well, I can see the kind of time I have available on these different days. This is a terrible task day, so I'm not going to do anything on that day, not unless I'm working late for some reason. But we try to avoid that. And then the other days that are more aligned, and then of course I teach my clients how to protect more time. So you can't be in back-to-back meetings all day and expect to get anything done. Hence the people working nights and weekends.
Right.
So we avoid that.
I've seen some people recommend, only checking email, twice a day at specific times. You recommend that?
I do not. What I recommend to my clients once they have the Taskology task list built and everything is all ship shape, now what they're going to do is toggle back and forth in their day, knowing that every task on their task list is small and achievable, even if it's a part of a bigger project. Everything that they're going to do is small and achievable, and they're going to keep moving that ball forward, giving us that steady forward movement that we're looking for in our day. And once they knock out a couple of tasks, then they go back to the inbox, get it back to zero, because we've already gotten it to zero. They know how to get it back to zero, and not just to see the pretty white space. We want to make sure they know that they've seen everything and they've made a decision on everything, and they've moved it all to those better locations of either reference or action, or it's gone, archived or deleted. And the most important part of that is getting those action items out of email and onto the Taskology task list. So then they feel, okay, great, we're back to 100% clarity here. I know where everything is. I know where I am on my projects and my tasks. So now that I've gotten back to zero, there's nowhere else to look. I go back to the task list and I do the next most important task of the day. So for everyone, it's different because you don't know how many calls and meetings you have scheduled during a typical workday. So you might get something done before your meeting. And then after your meeting, then you get back to zero. And then you can go back to the task list, or you go to lunch or whatever. So they know for themselves exactly when they're going to be looking at each thing, the task list or email, because those are the two most important processes in their day.
And you mentioned something about blocking off time. Should people block off time so their weekday doesn't get filled with appointments, meetings, and all that?
Correct. Yes. So we do a method of time blocking in Taskology, even though people out there are very, very familiar with time blocking and they might dismiss it out of hand. What I will tell you is that we go deeper with our methodology, because it's more than just throwing a time block on your calendar when you feel like it. This is more proactive, where I'm showing my clients exactly how many days a week to do it, how many times a day, how long the block should be, and what to do when your priorities shift and the day changes or something goes wrong. So they have them forever and ever, and they will never fall off the calendar, because that's one of the biggest problems I see, is that people have time blocked, but they've only done it once here, once there, which is not going to serve you, or they do it for like a month and then it falls off. And they're like, oh crap, I just filled up my calendar. I forgot that that was going to fall off. And now the recurrence is gone. So you never want to have that happen, because then you're going to be stuck. And that's a bad thing.
So back to me. Tell me if I'm doing this right. I've done this, for the past 10 years and maybe 20 years is, I don't, take appointments before 11 a.m. And so that allows me to do what I need to do. Used to, get my kids off to school when they were still home, get a workout in. That still allows me, get ready. And then if I'm not traveling and speaking, right, this is when I'm in town. And then, it still leaves me, a couple hours to do everything that you're talking about, set my day up, respond to, anything that came in overnight, all that. And then, so, it seems to work great. I've never had anyone, say, I, and if it's a doctor's appointment or something like that, I could put it in there.
Right.
Am I on the right track?
You are. Again, you've come up with a system that works for you.
Yeah.
And if you've decided to protect the kind of time that we teach about protecting, and you've put it all in one spot, and it's say between 8 and 11, I'm just making that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That is totally fine. The only thing I think that might trip up a few people, maybe in corporate, because the entrepreneurs and business owners are different, like you and
Right.
me.
Right. And I know
Um,
that's not everyone
yeah,
can't do what I'm doing.
that's right. That's right. Because they have so many meetings on their calendar and people need to meet with them or want to meet with them, this is what we're protecting them from, because people, as you know, will throw an invite on the calendar and all of a sudden they're stealing your time. And the question then is whether you say yes or no to that. But basically, we want to protect time in both the morning and the afternoon, because if you do it all in one block, and I'm talking about the corporate folks here,
Yeah.
not only is that probably not possible because people are going to be
They don't
screaming.
have the luxury of blocking off
They do
nine
not.
to, yeah.
They do
Yeah. Yeah.
not. They got to come to the sales meeting, the
If their
management
CEO
meeting.
wants to meet with them, yeah, you have
That
to, you
too.
can't say,
Right.
sorry, I don't take appointments before 11.
And you've got so many standing meetings, the
Right.
committee meetings and all of that. So that's not possible. But let's just say, so when they have some time protected in the morning between those mandatory meetings, what have you, that's awesome. But then for the folks who have blocked it like you have, the only trouble is if you filled up your afternoon with meetings and calls and other commitments, well, now email could be spinning out of control. So as long as you know that one of the first things you're going to have to do in the morning, and that's what that time is for, getting it back to zero, well, that's fine. If you've allowed for time for both email and tasks or projects, then you're golden. It's all good. I think the corporate folks, they have to spread it out. So that's why we have a plan so that they've got some protected time in the morning and some protected time in the afternoon, because they're going to need it. They don't
We
want
are
email to
talking
spin out of control.
We are talking to Leslie Shreve, founder and CEO of Productive Day. Leslie, what well, something I want to ask you is usually kind of how I fell into what I'm doing is because we struggled with it ourselves.
Mhm.
How did you fall into being this guru on productivity? Did you struggle with it when you were in the corporate world?
I actually didn't. I know that's a boring story, but I've
Yeah,
always been this way. I think
yeah,
the story goes that I was so, I guess, efficient and time interested in time and saving time
right.
from being a little girl, that my mom, before she passed away and all through my adulthood and childhood, would tell stories about some of the things that I did as a kid that were very indicative. Even the teachers at school, they would put it all over my report cards. She is efficient, she gets her work done, and she's this with time, and she's been productive, and she's making progress, and all of these key words that have been a thread through my entire life.
So it was just a
So
superpower that you kind of, developed.
yeah, I think so. And when I went into corporate, I thought I would be in corporate forever because my dad was at Black and Decker for about 33 years or so. And when I visited his office as a small girl, I remember being wowed. I was like, wow, I really want to work in a place like this
Yeah.
someday. So knowing going through school that I wanted to get my business degree, knew exactly where not exactly where I wanted to go to college, but generally I knew exactly the degree I was going to get. And then I wanted to get a job. So when I left corporate in 2003 and started Productive Day, I had no idea what this was going to turn into, but I had a vision at the time. And of course, always the vision is changing and shifting, but it was still the same thing. It looks a little different today than it did 20 years ago, but it's always been about efficiency, productivity, and making progress. So it's been a really fun path. But yes, I hopefully honed the super skill or the superpower so that I can share it with others and help them not be overwhelmed in their workday and help them get more personal time back so they can get more time back in their life.
So what is the first steps our listeners should take if they feel overwhelmed and stressed out at work?
Call me. No. Yeah, visit our website, get in touch with me. The first step you really want to do is figure out, what are the roadblocks that are holding me back the most? Is it too much paper and files? Is it email? Is it tasks? Is it all of the above? Because
Too many
usually it is.
communication channels.
Pardon me?
Too many communication channels.
That can be a part of it. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the first step is really understanding that your workday has two parts. So it's really an insight I'd like to give to people is understanding these two parts are made up of the time that you spend. So the time you spend on your expertise, whether they're an attorney or they're an investment banker, whatever they do for a living, that's the best use of their time or CEO, whatever. But whatever it is you're doing, that's the best use of your time, using your expertise, your education, your background, your talent. You bring it all together to do what you do best. But that should be the bulk of the time you spend in your workday, of course. But there's this other part called workload management. And that's where, if that workday is not working, it's literally stealing time from the part of your day that you could be using your expertise. And so what I want everybody to understand is that how you're working really matters. How you work is just as important as doing your work. But
Right.
if you can't get to do your work, you really have to reach out for help, because looking for tips and tools and tactics and shortcuts, apps and hacks, not going to serve you. That is not going to be a lasting good result. It's not long term. It won't work. It won't last. So come to Productive Day, look around, check it out, because what we do is bring all those processes together in your workday, because when they're not working, it's holding you back and you're not able to do what you do best. So my mission is to help you do your mission better, faster, easier, and have a more efficient and happier workday, so that you can go home and unplug and not worry about anything until the next day. So yeah.
So, so people can find out more about you and your resources, productiveday.com,
Right. And there's
productiveday.com.
a couple free resources we do offer people.
Yeah.
Start with the quiz. We have a really fun Productive Day quiz on the home page and also in the navigation bar, called What's Your Number One Productivity Blind Spot? So take the quiz, because it's only 8 questions. And on the other side of it, you'll find out if you're a giver, a marker, a jumper, or a detective. And you'll get your own unique results report. And following that, you'll get another special insights report from me that will dive deeper into your particular blind spot, tell you what's really going on with that, and how to solve it. So that's my first recommendation. But we also have the Productive Day Smart Steps. It's a 52-week audio series that I created, 2 to 4 minutes. I'm giving you the strategies straight from Taskology. You sign up, you'll get an audio every week. And then we have a special report called The 7 Surprising Secrets to Saving Time. And all 3 of those are on our homepage.
Awesome. All right. Productiveday.com. That's where you can get everything and connect more with Leslie and all her amazing systems. Leslie, thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy day and being on the Customer Service Revolution podcast.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure being here.
We'll be right back after this, revolutionaries.
If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give the Customer Service Revolution podcast a thumbs up and write us a review. To hear more episodes, subscribe now on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for listening and for being part of the Customer Service Revolution.